There is something special inside you.
Welcome to GNG Podcast with your host, speaker, best-selling author, Chaz Jackson.
Yo, what's going on, kings and queens? It's your boy Chaz Jackson coming back to you once again, representing GNG Gift and the Gift. Hey, I personally just want to take the time to tell each and every one of you, thank you for giving me your eyes and your ears once again as we get ready to dive deep into some inspiration that I pray will plant like a seed in your mind and assist you in becoming a greater version of yourself. So if you're new to listening to GNG Podcast, you're returning, you know that our motto is we're all gifted differently to make a difference. And I know there are tons of difference makers that's tuning in to listen to this. Let us know that you're there. If you're looking at the live stream right now, go ahead and share this out. Get teachers, parents, coaches, our young adults in front of this episode 31. We have Miss Habibah. She's going to bring tons of value as we dive deep on the theme, the evolutionary relationship between pain, purpose, and passion. And I spoke with this woman, and she's definitely living out all three of those, and she's going to again be salt and light to the world, like John Maxwell tells us. And before I read our first short bio, I want to go over the mission statement of GNG Podcast. You know, we strive to provide tips and techniques for our young adults as they strive towards empowering themselves with personal development. And I challenge you, as well as myself, to take the daily challenge of becoming a passionate visionary who is determined to leave a legacy for themselves by adopting unwavering life values and serving others in the area of gifting led by God. So that's the daily challenge I'm taking. I encourage you to walk that challenge out with me if you see fit. And let me read off this short bio on Queen Habibah, and we're going to get her on. She is a woman of many talents and gifts as an author, and with multiple certifications. She is the founder of Permission to Be Inc., which works to end all forms of exploitation of the most vulnerable youth in her community. And I'm going to let her dive deep a little bit more on what she does. Miss Habibah, you are live on GNG Podcast. Are you ready to get it, Queen?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me, Chaz. I am so very excited and honored to be here and to just shine my light and talk with you. So where do we start?
So I know what I read off was short and sweet. Is there anything else you would like the audience to know about yourself before we move forward into the theme?
So I am, as I wrote in my bio, many things to many people. So I'm a wife to an amazing giant. I'm a mother to three amazing young adults. And I'm abuela to three amazing boys. I am a minister. I am a lot of different things. But one of the things that I think one of the labels or titles I'm most proud of is that I am a formerly homeless teenage mom who overcame depression, sexual abuse and exploitation, domestic violence to discover that my purpose and passion was birthed within my greatest pain. I found who I am and who I was called to be, who God created me to be in the depths of my greatest pain. And it is my desire, it is my purpose and passion to help other women find their voice and find themselves in that same light. Because I think that I believe and I know for a fact that pain is never empty. There's always something that you can get from what you go through. And normally it's not
say that again. That was deep.
So pain is never empty. There is always something inside of the pain, something you can take out of the pain that's not just always for you, but for someone else also. So for me, those things that I've gone through have really taken me a number of years to understand that who I was called to be was birthed inside, was buried and as you said, planted inside of those struggles that I overcame. So I think that every single person, whoever you are, wherever you are, if you've been through anything, if you've overcome anything, that is a seed. And there's something inside of that you're supposed to take and use and to plant into somebody else's life so that they can also blossom. Wow. So that is who I am.
Yes, thank you for diving deeper on what you do. I love the way that you paint the picture and allow your pain, your purpose, and your passion to shine that particular light on someone else to help them, overcome their trials and tribulations. I love using this. That I feel like people with stories similar to yours, and we all have our stories, but your story is like oxygen to a suffocating individual in the world. Like, and if someone see what you have overcome, Habibah, and that gives them hope. You are a hope giver, and I just want to personally just say thank you for what you do, and how, again, I'm using that word a lot tonight, shining your light. I truly, because you're shining on this screen right now, just sharing how passionate you are, and I can feel it coming off, that energy. That's really good stuff.
Well, thank you. I want to say the same to you, Chaz. Giving people using this platform to give people a chance to tell their stories and those things is also shining your light. I think that many times when you go through things, a lot of times pain makes you isolate. You believe when you're going through something. So like when I was, homeless in a shelter, there weren't very many women like me, but I wasn't the only person who had ever been homeless before. I didn't know that there were other thousands and millions of people who have gone through the same thing that I've gone through. So I think that this platform is really amazing to help people understand that whatever it is you're facing in this day and time, there's always somebody else who has gone through it, who has overcome it, and there's something you can learn from that. So I am excited about, I'm hoping that the same way I learned from somebody else's story and help me to understand that I could overcome, that someone learns from mine.
Yes, ma'am. And I know you talked about, going through the sexual abuse, the exploitation, the domestic violence, the homelessness, being a mother. Can you even go back even before then, like in your childhood, and kind of share your story, moving on up into where you are now, being the empowering individual you are?
Sure. So I am one of 4 children. My mother, I always say, who has gone on to the Lord 8 years ago. My mother, I don't remember a time when my mother was not both sad and happy at the same time. Grow in my family with my mom, we didn't have a word like depression, like mental illness, like those things. So there were secrets and there were struggles and there were pains that my mother suffered from that I just thought was normal in that sense, I grew up seeing. So my mother struggled with alcohol and addiction and those kind of things. Amazing woman, had an amazing heart to love anybody and everybody. I always say that my mother did not meet a person. I don't care where we went and where we moved. My mother, every person she met, every stranger was a friend she had not met yet. So in Arabic, I grew up as a Muslim. And Arabic, the way that you call mother, the word you say is Ummi. My mother's entire 56 years, everybody called her Ummi because my mother was a mother to anybody lost, anybody alone, anybody disconnected, wherever she found. So for me, the crazy part is that I grew up seeing the person that I've become, as I call myself an abolitionist. I saw my mother do it first. So my mom, even though she was active in her addiction, she worked at a bar. So I remember one day coming home, we had living in Philadelphia, come home, and there was this teenage young man upstairs on our 3rd floor. My mom said, I'm like, who is this? She said, there's this guy. He's going to be staying with us for a while. Don't worry about it. And I saw that he had 2 casts on his feet. I said, what happened? She said, he just fell and broke his legs. But he's going to be staying with us for a while. He's not from Philadelphia. Don't worry about it. But if someone comes looking for him, do not answer the door. Don't tell them that he's here. So later on, I'm 11 or 12. Later on, we were moving from Philadelphia to Texas. And being the nosy child I was going through some papers that my mom had upstairs stored in our room, packing up. And when I found out and reading some police reports, was actually the young man was being trafficked out of a bar that my mom worked at. Wow. And from the Midwest, he was from the LGBTQ community, a gay young man who left home, found himself in Philadelphia, had been being trafficked by a pimp in the bar who was selling him out of the bar. My mom would talk to him. Sometimes she would feed him, and he told her he wanted to go home. When he tried to leave, the man broke his legs. So my mom helped to get him to the hospital and hid him in our house for about, to me, it seems like a long time, but now I realize a couple of weeks, and got him a bus ticket and put him back home, put him back on a bus to go back home to his family. So all of my entire life, I've always seen, even though my mother had a lot of struggles and a lot of problems, I've always seen this abolitionist, this person who would help anybody, who would take anybody. We've taken it, animals, babies, people, wherever we went. I lived all over the country, and wherever my mom lived at, we lived at. And we had a floor or a bed or a couch, you were welcome. So for me, even though my childhood had been very rough and I had gone through a lot of things, I can always say that my mother she was the first example of who I would become. The example of being an abolitionist, the example of being somebody that is working with those that are exploited, being an example of somebody that even when you have your own struggles, you still can be the light for somebody else. So I always say, I don't know anything else but to be but this, even though I didn't know what I was looking at as a child. And I, had different feelings and thoughts about her addiction. When I think about it now, 8 years since she's gone, and I've kind of been unpacking who she was and her life and her journey, I realized that my mother did a lot of good. It didn't have a name to it. I didn't, we didn't know about trafficking or those things, but I realized that all of my life I've been shaped and molded and more importantly had a model for who I will become now, at 46.
Wow. That's such a powerful story, and how your mother, she modeled a lot of what you're doing right now, and that kind of moves into like your organization, Permission to Be, INC. So would you say that whole modeling from her and what you went through kind of ignited you to help young people in this organization?
Yes, very much so. Because I think that what I realized, and I think working in this field for the last 5 or 6 years, is that for almost all exploitation, all trafficking, doesn't really begin. I tell when I teach students and I teach organizations, I tell them to kind of picture a train track that has 10 stops, and at the last stop of that train track is where the exploitation or the trafficking is going to begin. What normally happens is that young person, young lady, young man, a young person has been has had some exposure to some type of unhealthy relationship, lack of boundaries, some type of abuse that kind of softens and weakens their veneer, so that when they get to the end, when the big bad wolf shows up, they're used to it. So like when I was younger, I remember watching ABC specials on Sunday nights where the stranger danger was the white guy. Was a guy in the white van. Don't get in the stranger with the white van and the candy. That was who our boogeyman was. Now, for our youth today, that's not who they are. So if you, like me, grew up not having positive self-esteem, connected to adults, not having one real positive adult role model to talk to, when the person that comes into your life that and has an unhealthy relationship with you, you get used to it. So when you get used to it, it happens again and again and again. So when the big bad wolf really shows up, when the trafficker really shows up, you're used to it. You're used to being abused. You're used to being misused. You're used to being exploited. It's not anything new. So for me, for Permission to Be really came from the idea that we have to have conversations about relationships, about healthy relationships, what it looks like to be a healthy relationship, how things can go from good to bad. How do you find or identify that one person in your life that you can talk to? How do you develop safety plans? How do I know that how do I learn to trust my gut and know that this is not right? Because for me, many of the unhealthy places and relationships I found myself in, there was always sometimes a part of me that says, you know what, this doesn't feel right. And I'm not really sure why it doesn't feel right, but it doesn't. And I didn't know enough to trust myself and trust that small voice to say, maybe I shouldn't in that part. So for me, the company really is about this idea of understanding that when I say exploitation, I understand that it's a process. So if you have young people who don't know how to develop healthy friendships, platonic relationships, makes them more vulnerable for unhealthy romantic relationships, that makes them more vulnerable for abuse and all those kind of things, to get to a point that when something bad comes, you're so used to it and it's so familiar to you that it doesn't raise ideas. So for me, when I was 16, I had one friend, and for me, I thought it was normal for a 16-year-old girl to have a 30-something-year-old boyfriend, because I didn't have any friends. I was isolated, and it didn't seem anything was wrong with that. I couldn't ask myself, what would a 30-year-old man want with a 16-year-old girl? It couldn't be anything good from that. So when you don't have any standards, when you don't have any person to talk to, when you don't have your own measure or kind of guide to look and say, maybe this isn't safe. Maybe this is not right. Maybe him checking my phone or calling me 6 times or wanting to know where I'm at or demanding those kind of things. Maybe him controlling what I dress and who I talk to. Maybe this is not something I should proceed with. Maybe I should step back in that sense. And that, for me, that's kind of the whole purpose of ending all forms of exploitation. Because I think that a lot of times when we think about our youth, we think about just the end of the story. And like I keep saying it to people, I didn't end up at the end I had 9 other steps, 9 other interactions, 9 other things, 9 other tests that I didn't pass. So I got to the end of it to realize, oh crap, I'm really in trouble. And I think my desire is just to have those skills in our youth today, to help them, because we know that the adolescent brain does not finish developing to 25, 26.
Right.
It's developing.
So
And if you add trauma to that, trauma stops it, it pauses it. So, I'm sure in working and serving, we've seen some 50-year-olds that act like 15-year-olds.
Right.
So if we have adults who have been impacted by trauma and haven't had a proper brain development to really understand how to make healthy decisions, long-term effects, all those kind of things, what chance do our youth have? So all from understanding all of those things starts with yourself first, of how you see you and how you relate to yourself. Because I think healthy people draw and connect with other healthy people. If you don't know how, you don't know what it looks like. So if you don't trust yourself, love yourself, honor yourself, then you can't see when someone else comes in. Because for me, it was always just a little bit worse. So the first time I got hit, it was just a little bit worse than the last time. He didn't hit me as much. He wasn't as bad. He wasn't as controlling. And as I got older and started really getting involved, it was always just not as bad. So if this guy beat me a lot, this one didn't beat me as much. So this must be better because it's not as bad, versus understanding that no relationship should be that way. So I think for me, that's kind of my desire in doing all of this work, is to really build those skills so that, when we get to the point of being trafficked or exploited, that our youth will have this skill set. Because again, we know that our youth really, at the end of the day, listen to themselves, their friends, and maybe if they're lucky, one positive adult. So that's part of a lot of the work I do, is to think about that. Identify who is that one person. It may be a parent, it may be a teacher, it may be a youth pastor, maybe whoever, but who is that one person that you trust enough that you'll go to and kind of run those decisions? And then also, how can you influence and impact the friends? Because we know kids, it was different for us. We didn't have social media. So your crew, your parents or your mom or dad or grandma could watch your friends. Now they live in a world where nothing is real. You open a phone and you push a button and you have 5,000 friends, and I don't even think I know 5,000 people. It's like when I think about it, like I don't think I've ever in my 46 years of life can say for certain that I know 5,000 people and have 5,000 friends.
Right.
But you have this world in this palm of your hand that's not real, that you can say something and you'll find that someone will agree with you, will like you, and you have no idea who you're talking to. So you think you're 16 or 17 talking to another 16 or 17-year-old who's having problems at home, who hates school, or, those kind of things. And you're talking to a 45-year-old man who's looking to prey on your vulnerabilities and those things. And then you find yourself in trouble.
Gosh, hey, whoever's listening to this, hopefully you got your pen and paper, taking these notes down. I mean, she's dropping so many golden tips and techniques of how we can overcome adversity, how we can overcome what I like to call emotional baggage. And that was so much. We have so many similarities, and I think, and I shared some of that with you, even off the camera, Habibah, about growing up in an unstable environment, and a lot of that emotional baggage was created from a childhood. And when I say emotional baggage, I mean traumas and dramas that went unresolved, if that makes sense. And you mentioned, you can be in your 50s and still be dealing with something that happened when you were 7 years old. And so how do we break those barriers? And now I know, even for me, speaking from an instance, some of the things that happened to me in my childhood, it left some uncertainty in my heart. It left a period in my life where I truly didn't love myself. I'm being authentic with you. It left some barriers that created some low self-esteem, some of that poor social skills, like you was mentioning before, in which I'm paraphrasing a little bit what you shared. And I know that there's a parent, teacher, a coach that's dealing with a kid that don't quite love themselves. They haven't necessarily said it, but they see some of that low self-esteem inside of them. They know a little bit of their background that's been shaky, been unstable, been a negative. And from your point of view, and with the kids that you've been working with, what type of technique would you give based off of the theme to help that young person overcome that situation, in which our theme is the evolutionary relationship between pain, purpose, and passion. When you hear that theme and providing that type of technique for that educator, that coach, that parent on helping that kid that's dealing with that emotional baggage, what comes to mind for you? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I would say, and I'll tell you some of the things I had to do with my own daughter. So my own children, actually. The first thing I would say is find out where they are. I want to say the blessing and the curse of today is that we have a lot of different TV shows, reality. We have a lot of different, there are a lot of different people that are broadcasting or sharing their life with people. So for example, social media, but not even at reality TV. Find out who they listen to, find out who they model themselves, because again, a lot of our youth today has something. So I'll use my daughter, she's probably watching, but I'll use her as an example. When my daughter was a teenager, my middle daughter was a teenager, she loved Tamar Braxton. She loved the Tamar Braxton show and all of the Tamar Braxton reality shows and the Braxtons and those kind of things, whatever. And one of the first things I had to do with her and a few of her friends was to find out, okay, so tell me about Tamar. Tell me about what about Tamar appeals to you? What is it about her? Because the thing is that a lot of times there's a person behind the persona. And I need to be clear if you were if you were modeling the person, or do you really realize that there's a person behind the persona, that when those cameras turn off, there's a real person behind there. So I would find out, who do they listen to? Because I always believe that there are teachable moments in all, even though it may not be our own flavor. Like for me, I wasn't a fan of reality TV show. It wasn't my thing, but I realized it was a thing that my daughter listened to. It was a thing that my daughter liked. So we had to kind of unpack who this person is. Why do you like this reality star? Tell me about who he or she is, or whatever, sports star, whoever that is. Tell me about them. Then let's do some talking about it, because the blessing again of reality TV show is that it all falls out in front of the camera. So all of the good and bad of their life falls out in front of the camera. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about if they are, if you're watching reality TV and they're throwing water and throwing glass at the Olive Garden, can you do that in real life? Because although it's great for camera, it's great for, for drama and intrigue for the TV show, you'll get locked up if you do it in reality. What will it cost you if you acted the way that you think that they're acting? Why is it appropriate? Why is it attractive to you? Because I think a lot of times for us, we kind of want the kids, the youth, to come up. We're up here and they're down here. We want them to come to us. And the reality is that I should come to them, because I need to know what they see.
Wow, say that again. Like that's just
really, a lot of times we're up here and the youth are down here, and the goal, we want them to come to us. And really the goal for us is to come to them. Because the thing is that the thing that's given me my perspective has come from 46 years of living. So it's come for maybe 2 decades of experiences in life that taught me something that didn't teach you. So how fair is it for me to say that you have to come up to my 46-year-old level for us to relate? I need to go to you and say, so tell me about who you are. Who are your idols? Who are you? Who are your, who are your fans? Who's the goal, or whatever that they have, this, the goals you have hashtag that you're modeling your life after? Do you know the real person? What are they into? What are some pros and cons about what's happening? So I'll use Tamar. There have been a lot of things that kind of played out in her life that show either triggered or didn't trigger, or show or didn't show. But even now, and now my daughter's a 26-year-old married woman, and we still talk about the fact that, wow, maybe some of that behavior on television was connected to a mental illness. Or wow, look at how the relationship with her families have kind of changed. Wow, that's really important, because again, it makes the person become real. Not the reality TV show part, but the person that has gone through what they've gone through. And let's connect about how you want your life to be. Is this how you want your life to turn out in that sense? How could you do it differently? Because as much as I think for us as adults, as much as we forget, we had our own reality shows when we were younger. We had our own things that our parents didn't agree, approve, like when we were younger. And I think we forget that. I think the second thing that I would do is also really begin to, and I think you have to use wisdom in this and discernment. Show them your scars. One of the things that I've done with my children, even with the youth that I teach in classes and or whatever, is that I show up, yes, as Habibah Sulayman with a couple letters behind my name, and I got a bunch of certifications. But before I leave that classroom, or before I leave that session, I show them my scars. I say, I'm Habibah. Yeah, Miss Sulayman, I got all this fancy, stuff on, but I was pregnant like you were. I was homeless like you were. I was exploited or abused, whatever, in that kind of sense. Because I need you to understand that, like you said, number one, there's hope. For if you are going through this, there is hope for that. Number two, I need you to understand that you can relate. I can't think of any trafficking class I haven't done, training I haven't done in all the years I've been doing this, that there isn't somebody that come behind and say, thank you for that. Thank you. I didn't know that it looked like that. I didn't know that it could actually happen. I didn't know that you could be that kind of way or be in that situation and get over it and overcome it. And I think three, the last thing is just like evolution, you have to give them time. That if we understand that the adolescent brain does not finish in developing to the age of 26, and it starts from the back to the front, adults make decisions with our prefrontal cortex, where all of the long-term, all of that, good judgment and assessment sits right in here for us. That's where we make our decisions from. Teens and youth make it from the back, in the seat of the emotion, where it's emotions and the amygdala. So where you're talking to youth who don't have the concept of, I met a boy and I'm talking to a boy and he wants me to send him some naked pictures. And I'm excited that you even decided to tell me this, even though I'm inside of my mind, I'm like, no, I'm screaming. There's a part of me that's excited because you trusted me enough to talk to me about it before you did it. So to be able to understand, there's some growth in that. Because when you're working with, for me, when I'm mentoring and working with youth and women that have been trafficked, we didn't wake up one day, either you were in the life or you were abused or whatever it was, and then the next day you're just perfect. It's a process, and you have to be patient to understand that you may take 2 steps forward and 1 back, and 2 steps forward and 1 back. But for the youth that have been exploited, for youth that are at risk, they understand I'm in it for the long haul. I'm in it to win it for you. So it's not going to take overnight. You didn't get into this overnight. I didn't get into what I got into overnight, and it won't be overnight that it's over. But I'm that one adult that's committed. As long as you want to and you're committed to being here, we're going to do this together, and we're going to do it for as long as it takes. So I think if all those 3 things do, as an adult, I know for me, you have to be mindful about what you can and cannot commit to. So if you can and cannot commit to being that person, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it connecting with somebody can. But if you can, understand that you have to walk alongside them throughout this process, because it's not a straight line, in that sense.
I'm telling you, Miss Habibah, she's dropping the mic. Well, she dropped the mic like a couple minutes back, and then she picked it up and dropped it. So, man, that is so much meat. And in the audience right now, teachers, parents, coaches, I know you've took a lot from that, and a couple of things that stood out from all of that gold that you just shared was, for the youth, we have to meet them at their level. Because again, with our intellect, they're not at that capacity at that moment. So meeting them down at their level and sharing our scars. I love Lecrae. Long story short, he did an interview and he said a quote that really stuck into my heart. He said, "We shouldn't be afraid of our scars because our scars show wounded people that healing is real." And that's the journey that you on. And what I see, again, as you're shining your light and you sharing your story and how passionate you are about these young people. And I know you're changing lives because you're changing my life right now. And I know just from your passion, and I can tell that you care. So yeah, and lastly, what I took, and I'm sure the audience, is that everything's a process. Things are not going to happen overnight. And it brings me to this question now. I know there's someone that's listening that knows someone, or they're personally going through sexual abuse. They've dealt with some domestic violence. They've had situations where they was homeless, low self-esteem, not loving themselves really, but they on that, they're taking the daily challenge, like I mentioned earlier, our mission of becoming who God called them to be, but they don't have a proper routine or ritual to get to that point. Can you just share, what do you do on an average day after going through a lot of that, overcoming it? How do you keep yourself grounded in 2021? What's your average day look like? Rituals, routines that you could share?
I think for me, I think the first part of this is understanding you and knowing who you are. It's funny because when I was going through my process of getting healed from abuse and sexual abuse, whatever, I somehow thought that I was going to be in a dark room and all of a sudden have a light, completely dark and completely bright. And what I realized was that there were many things about myself that I had attributed to my abuse that actually wasn't true. So, for example, because when I was in the deepest part of my depression, I wasn't organized and my room and everything was a mess, and it wasn't. So there were times I would tell myself, oh, you know what, you can't be organized. You can't keep a house clean, or you can't. And what I really realized is after I got healed, that many of those stories or labels that I gave myself was connected to my disease or my mental health issue, whatever. So the first thing I would say to do is that think about what you say to yourself as soon as you open your eyes. Because I know for me, like I didn't sleep well last night. And when I woke up, I had to say to myself, today's going to be an amazing day. Even though I'm dog tired and I didn't sleep, today is going to be an amazing day. And it's going to be an amazing day because I'm going to make it amazing. So I will start off by saying having some type of affirmations that speak to you, because many times, especially through this process of healing and becoming whole, you won't feel like it. I had a therapist who said to me that feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts.
I like that.
You feel that way doesn't mean you're going to always feel that way. So I woke up this morning feeling tired, but after I got up and I started moving, that feeling changed. So the second thing I would say is really understand that your feelings are going to vary and that they don't always tell you the truth. So not to embrace them as your reality. I'm having a bad day, so that means the day is bad and it's never going to get good. No, I'm having a bad moment. And I need to identify why that moment is bad. What can I do about it? Is there anything I can change about it? It's cold outside in Philadelphia. It's going to be cold as a spring. There's nothing I can do about being cold. So the decide that the day is bad because it's cold outside doesn't make any sense because I can't control it. I think the third thing I would say is that for me, I'm an early riser. I start my day off with headphones on and something on YouTube. You can find an inspirational video, a prayer, a sermon. I try to make sure that in the morning when it's quiet in the house that I always put something on that, again, helps me to kind of charge myself and change the environment. So I woke up tired. I put on one of my favorite sermons by Bishop T.D. Jakes to kind of get me in the mindset because I was so excited about today to understand about purpose, which got me moving and got me thinking about it and getting myself ready for that part. So I would say the first thing is identify, first of all, knowing, get some affirmations and speak some life. The Bible says that there is life and death in the tongue. So you have to speak life over yourself. 2, I would say that feelings will change and they're not facts. So don't base your day, your movement, or your life on what you feel because that will change. And then 3, find something that you that doesn't depend on you. Because like, again, there are days when especially if you're going through any of those things, domestic violence, abuse, whatever, that when you depend on yourself to be the only source of, if your voice is the only voice you hear, then you're in trouble. So I'll go and find something else. And YouTube is the amazing thing that I can find that helps me find someone else who can speak life into me, but I can't find it for myself. But I think those things would be good things to start off with.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you've said so much gold and just nuggets, man, that I'm sure the audience is taking to context. Hey, I look forward to going back and I've been taking notes now, man. I got my little notepad out, but I look forward to going back and listening to everything that you shared on this episode. And gosh, there's so much juice here. And again, I want each and every person to take that daily challenge on applying a tip or technique that's been provided. If you're working on growing in your calling, in overcoming an obstacle that you've previously encountered. And gosh, this woman here, I know she's definitely taken that daily challenge on impacting lives. And you've, like I said, you've impacted this audience life and personally mine. And thank you for coming on this show and just sharing all your wisdom and knowledge.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm so excited. Thank you for, even though we are thousands of miles away, I think that's one of the blessings of this pandemic, that it's allowed people to connect in ways that they would not have been before, that we can still change our world and others' world using this crazy, wonderful thing called social media and the computer and that part. So I want to say thank you, Chaz, and just consistently encourage you to understand. I mean, encourage you to keep going and to thank you for allowing people like me and other folks that you've met to just share our story, our success, our lives, and our tips with other people, not knowing who's on the other side of this computer looking at this video, who is one step away from the end, who is reaching the end of their rope and thinking about giving up, who is at a dark place and may not ever know that they just happen to, we know that nothing happens to happen, but just in their mind happens to flip on a computer or get a link and find something that changes their life. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to your audience that's watched and listened. And I am so very excited for the connection.
And I know there's somebody they want to connect with you after this episode. Can you share your contact info, how someone can reach out, get involved with what you're doing, and some of your contacts? I know you're an author as well. We didn't get a ton into that, but share your information with the audience, please.
Sure. You can find me at www.permission, PERMISSION 2 BE Inc.com. You can find me on Facebook under Habibah Sulayman, which is my personal page, or Habibah Sulayman Smith, which is my professional page. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, all those different places. Wherever you want to find me, you can find me. And I'm excited. Find me also on LinkedIn under Habibah Sulayman. I'm excited. Please reach out to me so we can connect. I can help in every way I can, or I can point you the direction to someone else who's able to better serve you or serve you in the area that you are.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You're definitely gifted differently to make a difference in people's lives. And again, thank you for being on GNG Podcast. I'm going to lead us out. And I told each and every one of you, be prepared. Episode 31 was epic. Again, drop your comments. Let us know that you're there if you're looking at this replay. Also, give us your one tip or technique that you're going to implement, and take that daily challenge on making it your lifestyle. I want you to stay up with GNG. More episodes coming soon. I want you to do two things for me. Keep that crown on your heart. And remember this. We are God's echo. I love each and every one of you. Peace.
Thank you for listening to G&G Podcast. Remember, you are gifted differently to make a difference. Please visit ChazJacksonSpeaks.org and let's continue to grow together. God bless.